Hello everyone, this is AutoML Training Working Group Community Call on 10th of July. Welcome everyone. So do we have anyone here on the call who just want to introduce themselves to the community? Maybe just say hello. Any new folks?
Sorry, I was on mute. I was going to say I'm new. I can quickly say hi. Hi, my name's Nick. I'm with Red Hat. Yeah, first time joining the call. So
Nice to see you, Nick. Did you use Kubeflow before? Just start to just get started with the different components.
yeah, I've mostly been using the model registry at the moment.
All right.
And a little bit of Khatib and stuff. So yeah.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you here. Anyone else want to say hello? All right, then we can get started. Just a reminder, this meeting will be recorded and published on YouTube, and this meeting is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. I think I just forgot to ask you in the beginning. So we have a few things to the agenda today that we want to talk about. So first of all, feel free to update the agenda if you have anything else to discuss. First of all, maybe we should speak about the release. So we published the RC1 for training operator and RC1 for KDIP. Let me just share my screen. Just a second. Yeah, so we have few bug fixes there for training operator. So it is RC1 for 1.8.0. So we kind of like see several bug fixes for SDK, like on the transformer side. Also like we're fixing some Volcano problem for the pod group and the incorrecting events in the get job logs API. So I just posted this changelog to our agenda. Feel free to check it if you have any questions for the release for training operator. So we need to probably cut another RC because we recently identified one bug. But since Ricardo, you're on the call, may I ask you a question? So I know that for manifest, you're not planning to do any RC, right? Is there any chance for us that we can include RC3 or we can just, you already decided to make a release with the existing manifest for the Kubeflow 1.8, 1.9?
I don't believe there will be time to cut RC3.
Okay.
Our suggestion for now is we can rely on master branch for people who would like to make run any tests on changes in the other components. And then if it looks good, we just sync with the 1.9 branch and then cut in the final release.
Yeah, I think it looks good. So this bug is not critical. Just for everyone else, we just recently identified a small problem with the wait condition for SDK. So it's not critical and it's not kind of, blocking everyone for using training operator or PyTorch jobs or TF jobs, right? It's just like, some condition that we kind of like checking here incorrectly when we waiting for job completion. So I don't like assume a lot of, reports on this at least. But like it's definitely fine to just cut manifest, the official list of manifest using the one that using this RC1 for release for training operator.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal if something cannot make it for 1.9 final because we have this policy to have patch releases in case we have any high severity bugs that could be embedded into the Kubeflow distribution. So see if it has an easy fix and it's possible to sync up with master branch until the final dates for release, that is July 22nd. Otherwise, we can consider a batch release that can get this bug fix.
Yep, that sounds good. Yeah, I think for training operator, that's pretty much it. I know we also have this PR created about this suspend condition, and the problem is that when a job is suspended, we having the correct condition there, like especially when you're integrating the Kubeflow jobs with K, like basically when you do the suspend and when you want to preempt some jobs. But I need to get feedback from Yuki or from Aldo how we do this on the MP operator side, because I'm not sure. So like the main bug fixes here basically if job is suspended, we don't need to clean up the resources for the job. By clean up, I mean like deleting the job by itself, because sometimes job has a parameter called TTL seconds, which means like identify how many seconds after how many seconds we need to clean up the job. So I still need to see if we actually want to implement it. Yeah. So far I only saw this kind of 2 PRs from the community. I don't see any other bugs in the RC1. Yes, and for Katie, I think we also cut the RC1. Yes, 0.17. And I think I added the changelog recently as well. Yeah, so I have a few bug fixes for SDK and also the features for gRPC. So this should be fine. Any questions for the release?
Quick question here. Do you believe with those bug fixes that we need to take care in training operator, do you see like it's only possible to cut the final releases for captive and training operator only next week, or maybe we can be optimistic and see those final releases be cut for this week?
Yeah, I can. So yes, so usually what we do, like a manifest is actually taking the official releases for training operator and for Katip, right? Not like RC, which means like I think we need. So I believe we can merge it tomorrow. Like we can make the official release tomorrow by end of this week. But then in that case, it will require for you to update the manifest repo, right, Ricardo, with the latest images.
Yeah, correct. After coding the release for the components, we need to sync the manifest with the manifest repo, and then sync up the version feature as well, the version branch as well.
Yeah. So you need to do another RC for manifest in that case, isn't it?
No,
Oh,
no.
RC, sorry, official release, right? Like the official release.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, then these bug fixes will be included basically, right? Because they actually will be there in any case. All right, let me sync with John and Yuki. I think we can definitely cut it tomorrow on Friday, and I will let you know when it is ready to sync with manifest. Sounds good?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for the release? I know that Stefano asked us to create a roadmap for 1.10. So I'm not sure if we can do it like before blog post, because we've been focusing on these V2 APIs for the last 3 months quite heavily. But I can just create a blank issue right now, and maybe in the future we can think about what actually we will deliver as part of 1.10. But usually we don't really put this 1.10 roadmap to the blog post. So I will ask Stefano if we can wait, or like
I can talk about this. Sorry, interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Actually, it's not you don't need to have a concrete roadmap for 110. If you could, like just like we did for pipelines, we created a discussion thread in the pipelines repo, asking the users what are the features they would like to see in the next releases. And then we share this discussion link as part of the roadmap discussion. So it's not something that it must be set in stone. It's just something that hey, this is the issue we're using to track what are the desired features for the next releases, and then you can do whatever you believe it's better for managing this project using milestones or something.
Yes, my only concern is like if we have the issue without any, because we can definitely update it in the future, right? We just don't have chance to discuss what we want to deliver by 1.10, right? And we even probably in the future will make more frequent releases, especially for training operator, especially with the recent work for V2 and also SDKs. Because I actually got some requests from the customers who want to see the releases for SDK more frequent, not like every 8 months, right? And right now, unfortunately, we do releases of SDK only together with the controller when we cut the version. So anyway, so I think let me discuss. Let me just propose something to Stefano, and we can maybe figure out what we can do there, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other questions? All right. So we have you before jumping to V2 proposal that I want to talk about because we finalize it finally and we want to like submit cap by end of this week, by Friday. So maybe do we have anyone here on the call from the GSOC side who just want to give an update to the community? What is status there? Maybe any quick updates, 2 to 3 minutes you can give to the community. Maybe we can start. Who just want to get start with the updates for the GSOC, because we've been working with the proposals for the last couple of weeks quite heavily.
Yeah. Hi. I'm Shashank.
Hi, Shank.
Am I audible?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm the GSOC mentee for Project 8, supporting new parameter distributions in Ktib. I'm done with the proposal part, and first I made changes to the experiment APIs. Then I'll be adding the controller APIs and the gRPC APIs, and then I will move on to work on different distributions individually. And that's it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Shashank.
I'm Shao Wang. I work on the Project 6 push-based metric collection for Ktib, and I have set 6 tasks for the GSOC project, and I have already completed 2 of them, and I'm modify a PR these days, and expected to complete in this week, and my coding phase is almost come to an end, and I only have 1 PR to raise for the GSOC if we do not consider the test case or some other docs. So that's all.
Thank you, Shao. Thanks for
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Go ahead, Helen. You can go next. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Helen. And for this summer, I'm working on the project of developing a hyperparameter optimization API for Ktib. So for the last month, I've been working on revising the proposal. Now it's almost come to the final version. But Andre and I are still discussing about some parameters for this tooling API. So if you are interested in this project, please have a look at my pull requests and post any suggestions if you have for this tool API. And for last week, I've been started to implement this API. So that's my progress.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Shiva Subramaniam, currently working on the project 7 to set up a automatic doc generation for GitHub and drawing repository. So I'm done with my research and approach I'm gonna create a solution for this project basically. So I'm done with the research about which tools we have to use for this and fix the swings as of now, and configure with the credit right now and locally and test for how we have to extract effectively and how we have to get into this with the website as well. First of all, I want to go only with GitHub, and then if the community accept the outcome from the GitHub uh, documentation, then we will do the same thing for trying operator. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you, Shiva. Do you have any tracking issues, or I just couldn't find it if you create one?
Yeah, I actually create a.
Oh yeah, I think I found it. Yeah, it's in the Ketip repo, right? That you created.
Yeah.
Yes, it's this one.
I'm
Right.
also separately done this for training operator as well.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great. Yeah, any questions maybe from the community about the GSOC, how you can help students, and also how you can get involved with this? Yeah, I think we're doing pretty much, but we're doing great. We saw like really great progress. So from many folks right now. If you're interested, I've linked all this tracking issue in our meeting notes. So please feel free to check these tracking issues if you want to help, especially because some of the projects might involve a lot of things on documentation updates and the unit testing. And I would love to see some help from the community for this specific project, because I guess we have all the features for Kitib, which actually will be necessary for us to migrate to V1 API relatively soon for Kitib. After we're doing the Kubeflow training V2, we're actually planning to have an API stabilized for Kitib, at least for hyperparameter tuning. And this feature will be extremely necessary to implement before we migrate into V1 APIs. So please take a look. I think as a next step, it would be really nice if you can maybe show some demos on this call and also like on the community calls. So maybe when you finish some of your projects, we can schedule some time for you to just give a demo, maybe just give an overview of your proposal. So you can get involved and actually share with the community what kind of work you've been doing for the last couple of months. Yes, and any questions so far for these projects or overall on the GSOC side? Sounds great. So in that case, again, please help us with the review. So it is kind of like connected to the next topic, but how to get involved. So the first thing that you can significantly help the community is actually start to review the PRs, because we have like limited amount of reviewers right now, and we want to like update the list. So we're planning to, if you're active in the community, we want to add you to the owners files as a reviewer initially. And we really want to have more eyes on the PRs and have more more people to actually review the new features. So we can make them more stable and make sure we don't really introduce any new bugs and any problems for our users. So first of all, please start to review the PRs. And also, there are several things, right? Like, before I jump to this, any specific questions you have on the getting involved that you want to talk about? Or you're just asking in general what kind of issues you can work on? Yeah. John, I just Shao, can you hear me? I think I just asked because I think you added this point around like contributions, right? My question was, do you have any specific topic you want to talk about, or in general you just want to ask how to get involved?
Yeah, I want to get involved in the continue more in generally, and I also want to know if the community the main direction this month the community work on.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. Chandra, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I have a similar question. Yeah, to start with, like, how I I I I did some contribution for the Spark operator release notes, not the catalog. I'm just wondering how to get a feedback on any PRs that I have raised. Is there a
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good question. So, and again, it's up to my first point about we need more people to be placed as reviewers, because it's a general problem in many open source projects that active contributors might be busy, and because of the limited amount of people who can take a look, it sometimes, unfortunately, contributors like have to wait some time until the APRs get reviewed, right? So this is a general problem across all the repos, right? We try to grow the community. We try to update the owners files. So specifically, we're talking about when you contribute some PRs and the working group leads see your activity. The next step for us as contributors actually add you to the reviewers here in the owners files, right? And actually, it shows that you also can become a reviewer. You can help with the review process. But initially, yes, you just need to be patient and also need to make sure that like you kind of like ping the appropriate folks to review your PR. For example, like asking them maybe on Slack or pinging them on GitHub. But sometimes it takes time. I can imagine like unfortunately, especially for Spark operator, the community is huge there and we just don't have a clear process right now. And there are like, almost 100, I believe around 150 open PRs. So it's very hard. Actually, 74 open PRs. So it's very hard to get review.
Okay, I
yeah.
got it. Yeah, thank you. I will wait for the reviewer to make a comment on the PR.
Any specific PR you're talking about, Chandu? Like you open it up?
Yeah, there is a PR. Let me check. Go ahead. I will ping the PR.
Yeah. Just feel free to like another good solution to get attention of PR to actually attend these calls. So Spark Operator has a monthly community call, like we're having this community call every 2 weeks. So if you want to have attention, just add your PR to the community nodes. And usually because contributors, I mean the working group leads maintaining these PRs, they will I hope they actually will review it, right? But at least like it will get some attention, right? And also Slack. And pinging them directly on GitHub.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Yeah, so for Shining Operator and for Katib, again, we have 2 developer guides. I guess most of GSOC students already follow this, but for anyone new who want to get involved in Shining Operator or in the Katib project, first of all, I would suggest you to follow this developer guide to get started with the operator, to understand like how you can build it locally, to understand how to run this from the kind cluster. And thank you, by the way. I think Francisco, you did this. It's amazing, like to updating this developer guide. So right now I have like clear instructions how we can get started locally and just start to contribute, right? So I guess this is the first step. And again, like if you see any issues with this developer guides, also feel free to submit a PR. So the first step, yes, let me just make a note.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Yeah, go. Do you have a question, Chana?
Yeah, I wonder if you mean that we can start start to get involved in the project more by reviewing other people's PR and then check the issues the community are working on, such as the hyperparameter tuning and the unit tests.
Yes. Also, like the good first issue, it's a good issue to get started. So, for example, this one. So I created this issue yesterday around ending the unit test for all of these public APIs. So I think, Shao, if you want to get started, maybe it's a good thing for you to start work on. So it just, you can just, for example, add one unit test for one of the public APIs, right? If you're interested, maybe it's the one thing that you can also help us, because right now we just don't have unit tests for all the public APIs. So this is the good thing to get started. Let me just maybe post it here. Issues with so we tried to label the issues with good first issue label. So it's easier for new folks to actually help us, right? So this these issues are extremely simple to implement. There are several also other good first issues that you can see in the training operator. Like, for example, a reference architecture for fault tolerance. Like, we don't have docs for run policies and elastic policy. So this is the one we also like looking for a contributor to help us. And other things like, automate the release process, deep speed examples for the MPI operator, so all other things. So if you find anything interesting you want to work on, just feel free to assign issue to yourself. You can just, open this issue and just, comments assign with your name, right? So with your GitHub handle, and basically you can start work on this issue.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, other things, I guess Francisco mentioned about the docs, right? Yes, docs is extremely important for us. So we're talking about docs on the Kubeflow website right now. So the docs, they are located, let me show you, right here. So this is our repo for kubeflow.org, and kubeflow.org, it has this component section. So we have training operator and we have the KTIP docs here. So docs also always need to be improved. So this is a great contribution if you want to add if you see some issues there, or if you want to improve the docs. Also feel free to update the PR, examine the PR to update some documentation there. Yeah, let me just make a note here. So this is the repo. Yeah. Otherwise, again, review other people PR, submitting the docs, improving the docs, and also working on good first issue. I think is a good start. And then, especially when we've been working this V2 APIs, I believe there will be so many things we need to work on and we need to help. So maybe if you're interested in distributed training and find like LLM fine-tuning capabilities, we definitely need some help, especially in Q4. So I'm talking about like from middle of July to September and October, when we're actually planning to implement all these features to the upstream. All right, I have 20 more minutes. Any questions on the contribution side? Yeah, thank you, Chanda. I will add your PR to the community and also this Friday for Spark Operator. I will make a note here. So we can discuss it. All right, and also like I would encourage, like, it's a great thing that Shao you want to work on, and other folks from GSOC, in addition to your proposal, I would strongly encourage you to also get involved with some other features, especially if you feel blocked or if you want to get response from mentors. If you have some time, please start submitting PRs for some other things that we need to work. For example, this one, right? Any unit test or improving the docs, right?
Okay, I see.
Yeah. I just suggest you to understand the project better. Try to work on some small things, that you can help, maybe even like reviewing PRs, right? You're reviewing some PRs that other folks opening, right? In training
Yeah,
operator,
I
yeah.
know. I will start by write some unit tests and
Yeah.
review others' PR.
Sounds
Yeah,
great.
thank you, Angie.
Thank you, Shao. Yeah, and feel free to ask any questions if you have anything like in terms of how to contribute there on other open issues, right? Especially like because after GSOC we want to like basically we want you to stay with the project so you can become a reviewer, approver, and also like become a working group lead to help other co-chairs and the working group leads. So it's very important to get familiar with the code base and to see how we can help. Especially right now, it seems to have some time during GSOC to get involved to the open source. Right. Any last questions before I move forward to these topics around V2? All right. So I just want to give you an update for this doc. So as I said before, we've been working on the V2 API for the last 3 months. So this effort actually started after the recent KubeCon in Paris. So we met a few folks in the batch working group, and we know that they've been working on the new workload called JobSet, which basically the workload which allows you to manage multiple jobs within the group. So this is a new Kubernetes workload, which basically CRD, and it allows you to create multiple replicated jobs. This is useful for like HPC, like high performance computing, and also for ML training workloads. Because sometimes in training it involves multiple replicas that you need to spawn. Like for example, you need to spawn a launcher, or you need to spawn the parameter server for TensorFlow, and also you need to spawn like a nodes or workers for your training code. So we just try to see how we can collaborate together to see how we can integrate job set within training operator. Because right now in training operator actually managing the whole life cycle of the pods. So it actually creates the pods and creates all of the policies. So we don't really rely on the batch jobs or job sets. And by reusing these jobs and functionality, it helps us to avoid the duplication and reduce the complexity of training operator, so that we not going to have a duplicated effort on the Kubeflow side and on the Kubernetes side. So just to give you an update, right now, what we want to do, we want to introduce 2 new CRDs. So the first one called train job, the second one called training runtime. And the thing is here is like training runtime is a CRD which basically have a pre-created training blueprints, which will be managed by the platform engineers, and which actually will contain some sort of the blueprint configuration for different type of the training jobs. Like for example, blueprint for PyTorch training using multiple nodes, or blueprint for fine-tuning Mistral. So we also want to create the blueprints for different fine-tuning models, like for example, Gamma, Llama, Mistral. So everything that you have in the Hugging Face, we want to give you a list of the recipes, or like give you a list of the blueprints, so you can quickly reuse it for the fine-tuning or for other aspects of ML training. And like when basically data science and training job is actually the CRD for data scientists. So data scientists, they don't really need to worry about some complexity of Kubernetes, like, some complexities, how to configure elastic policy, or how to configure gang scheduling, or how to configure like success policies. So they will only get like the minimum number of parameter they can configure and override the runtime that platform engineers will pre-create for data scientists. And then behind the scenes, our training operator will spin up a job set, will spin up the multiple jobs. Like in this specific example, it will spin up like storage initializer and the PyTorch job. And basically the PyTorch job so this specific diagram, it shows how multi-node, multi-worker strategy looks like. So the CRD, any questions before I maybe jump to the CRD, how the API, we construct API?
Andre, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go, John.
Yeah, so I think we discussed a little bit about having two sets of the training runtime blueprints. As
Yep.
one is cluster scoped and one is namespace scoped.
Yep.
So are we kind of aligned on that being the next kind of the path we want to take? That is, the community will maintain cluster scoped training runtimes and you'd allow them to copy, you'd allow data scientists to copy it over to their namespaces like Kserve
Yes.
or what
Yes.
you're thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Like we want to maintain cluster training runtime and training runtime. And I think similar to Kserve, so Kserve maintaining the runtimes for different model servers. So we want to have the same for our training runtimes. Like if you take a look at Kserve, you have like cluster training runs, cluster serving, they call it serving runtime for pedal server, right? Or cluster serving runtime for torch serve. So yes, I think community will maintain cluster training runtime, but eventually we will just give platform engineers instructions how to use namespace scoped runtimes, right? But I think it's a good point. Let me make a note here. So I probably need to update these runtimes here because I'm using the training runtime kind here.
Yeah, I think that's kind of
yeah
where I had confusion on. So the dog doesn't reflect.
Yeah, that's right.
This part.
Yeah, let me make a note. Yeah, so in terms of the API, I think the API that we're looking for right now for data scientists. So like usually data scientists, like we understand that probably they will work just with Python, and we will provide the Python SDK to simplify it even more. So they can easily create the train job from the function or train job from the GitHub, from Docker image, so they don't even need to build a Docker image. But eventually, like it looks something like this. Like if you want to use PyTorch distributed training, right? From data science perspective, from the data side experience, like they just need to specify training runtime reference, which is basically a reference for pre-created runtime. Like in these specific examples, like Torch distributed with multi-node, like PyTorch distributed support multi-node, multi-worker strategy. So you basically reference, and we can also like, provide some defaults parameters for Python. So you don't even need to specify it, right? And you just need to set a trainer config, we call it, where you set the image you want to use and the command you maybe want to override. How many nodes you want to use for training and how many resources you have for every node. So in PyTorch and API and most of the distributed frameworks, there is a concept of the node and there is a concept of the worker. So there is some misconfusion, I think, like back to of your question, Shravan, I don't have a chance to reply, but eventually the right thing is actually calling the Kubernetes pod the node, not the worker. Right now we're calling this worker, but the worker is actually the single GPU that you run inside the pod, right? Because a single pod might have a multiple GPUs, right? And every worker is actually one GPU that you're using for your training. This is how like multi-node, multi-worker strategy looks like. This is why we calling this number of nodes instead of number of workers. Yeah, I want to hear like maybe some feedback in terms of the naming. So do we have, John, I know you're the data scientist, right? So from your like perspective, does it make sense to calling the single pod as the node?
Yeah, so as far as my knowledge is, basically a node can have multiple instances, like containers. It could be a leader or a worker. So a pod has a multiple nodes, and node has multiple instances. So from your definition of a pod has directly pointing to a worker node or a
yeah. So worker is the one process. So worker is actually the one GPU, right? That you have inside the pod. And the pod might have a multiple GPUs, right? So pod is like a VM, right? We can think about it, right?
Uh,
Yeah.
Are we, so my question is like, are we, the terminology, are we adopting Kubernetes terminology, or we are coming up with a new one? Like there is no node term defined under pod. So are we saying that worker is nothing but a node?
Yeah, so we want to adopt ML, we want to adopt, PyTorch terminology basically.
Okay.
Because for PyTorch, there is not concept of the pods, right? In the PyTorch, you have nodes and you have workers.
Workers.
And every worker is a single GPU basically.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it's called like processes, like because in PyTorch you have like num-proc per node.
Right.
Which means like how many GPUs have in a single pod, basically, right?
Yeah.
But some frameworks don't support it completely. Like for example, TensorFlow doesn't support multi-proc, so basically, I don't know if in TensorFlow you can specify how many GPUs you have on a single device. So on a single pod, basically. That is why, like for TensorFlow, there is a concept of workers, but for MPI or for PyTorch, like most of the frameworks right now. So what we see from the feedback, so people use MPI or people use Torch Run. So people usually use MPI for when they have HPC cluster, like basically on-prem cluster with HPC specific setup, or they're using the PyTorch for like public third-party cloud clusters, like the GKE or EKS or Azure. Some people using JAX on TPU specifically. But I think on JAX, there is also a concept of processes per node. But there are some, it's actually, so they don't have like some such complexity compared to PyTorch, for example, right?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, this is good. For now, I think I don't have any feedback. Let's keep it as is. We can discuss more later.
Yes.
Hi, Andrew.
Good.
Yes, if you go back to that picture, if you could, for example, because I was confused by this as one. So maybe we should, let's say, describe better exactly what means the worker, starting by, let's say, the physical machine and how that things compares with Kubernetes. Because I mean, like given this picture, for example, I'm looking for the worker and GPUs. For me, it was like a physical machine, but it's not.
So
It's a
yeah,
concept.
yeah, good.
No, I would like say, I was saying that it is not, because it is a concept of PyTorch. So maybe this is clear for you. Maybe for the others that let's say starting on this project is not very clear.
Yeah, so I think like, so there is a concept of Kubernetes, like, so the pods is actually the VM, right? So VM might have more than one GPU, basically, right?
Yes.
Which means like, and for PyTorch, every GPU is a single process, right? Because you cannot basically construct the GPUs in the group. So in PyTorch, when you do distributed training, is basically, for example, for FSDP, you're placing the shard of your model for every device, right? So imagine you have like a one VM with like 3 GPUs. If you want to like do FSDP, you're kind of like placing the partial, like the chunk of your model for every device. So you're not going to out of memory. And for the PyTorch, the concept of the worker is actually the single device, basically. That is why we don't want to be specific to Kubernetes, because our audience, like our customers, is actually data scientists and ML engineers, right? We want to be more closer to PyTorch and to TensorFlow, to all of these, distributed capabilities, how we actually do training, right? That does make sense. Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can agree with all the comments that are made here, in the sense that if it's given, I mean, I agree that the customers are data scientists, not Kubernetes users. But since that we support multiple frameworks here, and even between frameworks that the terminology is ambiguous enough, I feel like it makes sense for the frameworks to choose what that means, and instead, we have that framework specific overrides in the train job. Maybe it fits there better to describe whatever it means from the framework perspective. That is, if pod means if pod is one worker, if pod has multiple GPUs, we wouldn't want to be restricted on all sorts of topologies and configs that are possible. It's also possible that one worker can use multiple GPUs. So which is not really highlighted in this picture here.
Maybe it might just be constructive for us to have like right before this, just some definitions about this, just to clarify. I think like a small table with that, those definitions might help provide clarity there.
Yeah, so from the PyTorch perspective, worker is actually device, right? Worker, and from MPI perspective is also like worker is device. From deep speed perspective, right? Like it is not only the case when a framework doesn't support multi-node, multi-worker strategy, right? Like if you go to Torch Run, for example, and if you check here, you basically will see that's the worker, they call like single node multi-worker, right? When specify number of nodes, number of processes per node. So number of processes per node, it means like how many workers you have in a single node, right? MPI has a similar concept for MPI run. Like if you check like the MPI run commands, right, and open MPI, they have a concept called NP. And NP is actually the number of processes in a single machine, right? And the process is actually the worker. But why are we calling them worker? Because it's from the model training perspective, it's the thing which actually execute the training, right? The feed forwarding and the backprop, right? That is why we're calling this worker. So the problem is the number of nodes is a parameter which is specific to, because number of nodes is basically number of Kubernetes pods, right? That is why I try to put it outside of ML spec. Back to like your question about Shravan, like, do we want to add number of nodes in ML spec? Because number of nodes will be everywhere, right? The question how we should name it is the second one, right? But for every framework, we'll have a number of pods, basically, right?
I understand, but what if you had I mean, I guess the idea behind mentioning nodes is that you want to specify how many workers are kind of distributing that compute task.
Yes.
So maybe worker kind of fits there better, but the concept of pod and node is, again, we are bringing the Kubernetes terminologies, not the terminologies that data scientists are familiar with, which is.
So we don't. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think. Yeah, I mean, I have like having that table of explaining all the concepts. I think that's also very useful, and we could just run with that, whatever.
So.
That is correct. Yes. So basically, yeah, if we document about each component, that should be a surface for this terminology.
Yes, we can definitely add this table. I mean, I'm fine with this, but like we need to be closer to the frameworks, right? What they're doing on the ML ecosystem, and the ML side, there is a concept of the node and there is a concept of the worker, right? Like forget about Kubernetes at all. Like how we implement this in Kubernetes, like data scientists don't really worry about, or even platform, like ML engineers, right? Like whether we're using pods, whether we're using maybe we're using Slurm, right? Like I don't know, there is a different concept. I don't think pods is actually important for us. The thing for us is important, like it's actually the concept of how they naming on the ML ecosystem side, right? But let me add this table for TensorFlow, for PyTorch, for JAX, for MPI, and then we can maybe it's making more clear for everyone why we actually calling them nodes, not the workers, right? Here. Yeah, now we have 2 more minutes and we have like another topic. So can I ask a question? So can we move this topic to maybe next week? I just want to quickly share some training runtime if it's fine with you, Nicholas.
Yeah, let's
Yeah, it's completely fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Yeah, I just want to share so the experience from the yeah, I think this is pretty clear, like how it looks like from the Python experience perspective, from SDK perspective. For the runtime, just give me a second. Yeah, also we introduced the parameter called dataset provider and model provider. So it's which allows you to reuse the fine-tuning blueprint to actually specify your custom datasets. And we're planning to support more providers in the future. So right now we support only S3 and Hugging Face, but we also want to support maybe GCS in the future, maybe HDFS, PVC. So it will make it very simple for you to iterate on these blueprints on a different fine-tuning recipes, right? That we want to use. Yes, and this is the API structure. Overrides, I don't think it's very interesting. Also, MPI. Yeah, I think initially, so the how runtime looks like, it looks like this. So this runtime will be clustered. We will maintain the list of runtimes, us as a community, for different frameworks like PyTorch, TensorFlow, JAX, XGBoost. But also you can override it and create it like, for own custom requirements, for example, for custom run policies, for custom elastic policies, for gang scaling, right? And these runtimes will be maintained by the platform engineers, not by data scientists, right? Because it has more kind of, jobs, like job specific spec. Here we introduced the parameter called ML spec, where I have framework specific parameters. Like, for example, we have the torch spec where I have like elastic policy, because PyTorch support elastic training. Also like number of proc per node, which like the same as torch run number proc per node. And also we have like some parameters for API, like API implementation and SSH outbound path in the API spec. Yeah, I know over time it was quite quick, but any maybe questions, any feedback on this API?
On the question on CRD updates, I mean, like let's say now there is a little bit of a like all the training runtimes are, for example, you need to update the definition of CRD, then there can be some cross impact. That is, you want to change the MPI spec. But everyone else have to also update the training runtimes. So I'm wondering, I think there was a question on that in the doc also. So I was wondering if that's something we want to look at, or whether that's not something that's really, going to trouble us in the future. But yeah, I guess wanted to know what the community thoughts are on that. Essentially, everything is of one kind.
Makes sense.
How do we make sure CRD updates are impacting less people?
Yes. It's basically, yes. The question, do we want to have framework-specific CRDs? And Josh, I think, asked this question, right? So I want to hear feedback from users, like whether, because we don't want to have framework-specific runtimes, because it will be very hard. Because usually from our experience, if people choose PyTorch, they use PyTorch, right? If people choose MPI and they're using HPC, they will always use MPI, at least like for a couple of quarters. Or maybe they will separate clusters, right? I don't find a lot of use case when people use different frameworks on a single cluster in the single team, right? Because sometimes, I mean, it is right now, like in the stage of 2024, people focusing on just on the one thing, right? And they don't really usually jump between multiple. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, do we have any like objections that you
No,
want?
I think in my experience, teams and even companies tend to, I mean, not all companies, some companies do have variants, but teams tend to really like anchor on one framework and really double down on it.
Yeah, because it takes time to educate your team about other frameworks, right? But there is also the use case when data scientists join the team and maybe they know TensorFlow, but all the people do PyTorch. Do they need to spend time to explain them PyTorch API? or they want to give them ability to build models in TensorFlow, right? There is also some sort of the, like hardness in terms of the flexibility, right? Yeah, but I would love to, like learn more from, especially from the big teams, like how do you manage different frameworks in your company, right? Especially with right now, people just do fine tuning, right? Not really many people do training, right? I mean, if you're speaking about, some really large models, right? And that is why like concept of LLM ops become a thing, right? That is why the runtimes for fine tuning will be really interesting to see how we can maintain the list of the configurations for multiple models and pre-created, like we basically can tell people what configurations need to be used to fine tune Llama on Kubernetes, right? Or what configuration needs to be used to fine tune like Gamma or Mixtral or like all other models that you have on a Hugging Face, right? Yeah, so definitely take a look. I know we're at time. So any maybe last questions you want to ask for this proposal?
Yeah, I think there
Yeah.
are also concern on this is definitely a backward incompatible change.
Yeah.
Do we want to spend time on kind of solving that problem where I mean, or the community generally okay with this breaking change? Because I mean, nobody likes breaking changes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what should be our strategy if we want to design for some backward compatibility stuff, or whether it's okay for this to go as is.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Is it possible so we can construct a CRD with backward? We can definitely create the conversion webhook from PyTorch job, for example, to train job, right? And training runtimes. I think it might be possible. Like, for example, imagine when you create some PyTorch job, which you already pre-created, we kind of create for you runtime plus train job. And then when all the time you're creating the PyTorch job, we check it, right? But I don't know if I have any other like, more interesting solutions, right? Because yes, this will be completely breaking change, right? And you need to migrate all of your tasks there.
It's probably complicated. Maybe we should take this on the doc and maybe have a separate section discussed there.
Yeah, that's right.
Or maybe it's not possible. I think if it's not possible, then maybe the only option is to do this breaking change. So, but we should definitely discuss on that.
Yeah. Do we have any existing users here on the call training operator with any concerns? I know we have some folks from IBM, but I don't think they're on the call right now.
There were some folks from IBM that were interested in some of the V2 changes. I've been away for a couple months, and so I'm just getting back and trying to get context on all that. But I can follow up with them and see. And I actually plan to review the spec by the end of the week and provide some thoughts.
Yes, that will be great. Thank you, Francisco, definitely. Let's have a chat with them again if they have any concerns or strong objections for us, right, moving forward. Yeah, but overall, I think it looks good. All right, sounds great. So I will definitely like address all these discussions today we have like in the doc, and please feel free to add your comments directly on this proposal, and we will create the cap relatively soon in the training operator repo. Sounds great. All right, thanks everyone. So see you in 2 weeks. Have a good day. See you soon.